In the first two parts of this series, we looked at Genesis and 32X games that appeared on both platforms and compared some of their audio and visual features. In those comparisons, we found a lot of similarities and not very many true enhancements. In fact, in some cases, the Genesis version even ran and played better. But the Genesis wasn't the only machine to get a boost by the 32X's abilities. There were games for the Sega CD that could also use it, and in this episode, we will be looking at those as well. A game built on top of 3 platforms had to be something special, right? Let's take a look and find out. We are going to start with Surgical Strike, an on-rails explosion simulator. This was developed by the Code Monkeys, the same company that did Tomcat Alley. You are in control of a combat hovercraft that is loaded with missiles and a chain gun. As targets pop up, you mow them down or blow them up. You even have some control over the direction you move, though these are still confined to the pre-recorded paths. Here, the color advantages of the 32X are pretty easy to see. While still grainy as hell, there's a ton more detail in every scene of the 32X version. To its credit, the Sega CD is still full screen and is still fairly easy to make out everything that's going on. And man, are both these games hard as hell. The first few times you play them, you have no clue just what the hell is going on, and you take damage from every angle. Curiously, the 32X version was actually advertised on the Sega CD box as a free upgrade, but that never happened. In fact, the only boxed release there ever was for the 32X was in Brazil, where it was sold as a standalone product and has become a heck of a collector's item, especially complete. Outside of its collectability, I can't say I enjoyed this one much. I appreciated the realistic models in the environments and everything blows up real good, but the constant switching between these animations and the targeting system really grows tiresome. The 32X is definitely the better looking version, but this game is a misfire otherwise.
Okay, soldier. Kabul knows you're here. You're gonna have to find your own way in. JJ and I'll give the look down from here. Take out the missiles before they get off the ground. Shoot for the boosters. Okay, soldier. Kabul knows you're here. You're gonna have to find your own way in. JJ and I'll give the look down from here. Take out the missiles before they get off the ground. Shoot for the boosters.
I always thought the Supreme Warrior was a really interesting direction for a full motion video game. The mix of video, sprites, and narration kinda lent a unique touch for the fighting genre. The gameplay consists of fighting various bad guys, gaining their power, and then facing the evil warlord Fang 2. The gameplay is a little different than your typical full motion video slog, thanks to the use of a fairly snappy interface. You attack at the right times and the video plays out in your favor. Miss your chances to score hits and block attacks, and you take damage. Problem is, it's so fast and the icons are so far apart, it's incredibly hard. Watching my daughter play it was hilarious. I was bad myself, but watching her fumble with the control pad in exasperation was eye-opening. She told me she sees why the Sega CD went down in flames with garbage like this. The Sega CD video is not full screen, but it still doesn't look too bad. It has the typical grainy look, but everything is easy to see and make out. The 32X version improves nearly everything about it, however. The video is cleaner, in a larger window, and of course quite a bit more colorful. Surprisingly, they did skimp on the heads-up display, which still looks like the low-color Genesis border, it's just smaller. Like a lot of full-motion video games, Supreme Warrior is tough no matter which version you play. It takes quite a bit of time to get a feel for how to succeed, and man does it get tiresome getting your ass kicked over and over. I did enjoy the 70s style kung fu presentation, and the cutscenes can actually be quite entertaining. The vanilla Sega CD version of this is fine for these things, however, making the 32X version kinda unnecessary outside of the additional visual polish. At its heart, it's still a full motion video game, so if you hate them, this one ain't gonna be changing that.
My. Kai, how you've aged.
And you, Fang 2, ferocious as ever.
More so. My. Kai, how you aged.
And you, thank to, ferocious as ever.
More so.
One of the stranger full-motion video releases was Slam City with Scottie Pippen. Like Supreme Warrior, it uses fast interactions to play out the various video clips. It of course is nothing like real basketball. While you can move the on-screen character, you have no control over how the video flows, meaning you have to look for the right cues to actually succeed. But this is utterly destroyed by the constant cutscenes and trash talking that break up the action. It's weird stuff too. Guys trying to score girls, bookies taking bets, and a ton of other non-basketball related crap. The Sega CD video is again grainy as hell, but it at least remains detailed enough to follow what's going on. The 32X version offers some improvement, but not a lot to get excited about. There is still tons of blocky artifacts hampering the display, and the sprite elements look just as awful in both editions. They even kept the same damn low-color heads-up display. Again, I appreciate that Digital Pictures was trying to make full-motion video games more exciting, but it again fails to unshackle its games from poor pacing, terrible control, and a bunch of interruptions that have nothing to do with the subject matter. If they put the constant cutscenes before and after the game, it may have been more tolerable, but as it stands, both these versions are piss-poor representations of the sport. Both also come on a whopping 4 CDs.
Man, I almost broke a sweat running points on you so fast. You got beat down bad, man.
Don't worry about me, Ace. I've got a ride.
All I wanna do, girl, is carry your books, hold your hand, and walk you home from school. Yo, bro, you were so close, but nah. Told you I had something for you.
You should have dunked more. Uh-huh.
Good old Night Trap. Depending on your view, this is either one of the very best full-motion video games ever, or one of the worst. Since I encountered it early in the life of my Sega CD, I'm rather fond of it in a way, so the 32X release held a ton of appeal for me. Same setup as before. You are controlling hidden cameras and traps inside a house full of vampires. Your job is to save a group of young women while denying the vampires a feeding frenzy. You can jump room to room at will, which always kind of provided a nice exploration factor for discovering when and where you should trap the bad guys. The Sega CD version has the usual shortcomings in regards to video. It's grainy and the color use is quite weak. The window you navigate is kind of small too. The 32X made that bigger, improved the image quality, and upped the color quite significantly. This does make for a more pleasant experience if you are a fan, so I can definitely recommend it. It does nothing at all for the gameplay however, so if you always hated Night Trap, you'll be hating this version as well. This was actually the centerpiece of my 32X collection for a long time, because my family and friends enjoyed playing it so much. I always kinda saw this as a party game, as it's much more fun with more people. Unlike some of the other full-motion video games on the 32X, this one improved the heads-up display quite significantly. When Fahrenheit was released in 1995, it was the only North American release for these machines that shipped with both versions in the same retail packaging. As nice as that was, you couldn't give one of the discs to your friends though, because the 32X version needed the Sega CD disc to boot up. Not that it matters, because this is yet another case of only mildly improving video assets. The goal here is to work your way through burning buildings, completing objectives before your oxygen runs out. You can freely move as you please, but you won't last long if you keep going the wrong way. Originally, you were aided by maps that were included in the instruction manual, and without them, you kinda end up flying blind. Both versions are full screen and there's no heads-up display to speak of, so these two end up looking pretty similar. After seeing a few full-motion video games in a row, you kind of start to realize that while the 32X version looks better in every instance, the impact just isn't all that impressive. Both are still grainy, both still have loads of compression artifacts, and both just don't look all that great. I mean, you had a $100 Genesis, a $300 Sega CD, and a $160 32X, and this was the best improvement we could get. The monumental disappointment of how these two machines were being used should be setting in right about now.
Hot dogging tonight, okay? Let's get in, search, rescue, and get out.
Yeah, if I gotta follow you, I'd like to get out in one piece. Hey, hot dog, don't forget your gear.
My daughter, Emily. My daughter. Slow down. What's the story? My daughter might be in there. Car is there, but I don't see her anywhere. Oh, God, you gotta find her. You heard him, boys and girls. There may be someone in there. It's time to shake and bake.
No offense, bro. Tonight, okay? Let's get in, search, rescue, and get out.
Yeah, if I gotta follow you, I'd like to get out in one piece. Hey, hot dog, don't forget your gear.
My daughter, Emily. My daughter. Slow down. What's the story? My daughter might be in there. Car is there, but I don't see her anywhere. Oh, God, you gotta find her. You heard him, boys and girls. There may be someone in there. It's time to shake and bake.
No offense, Proby, but
Corpse Killer was perhaps one of the better received full-motion video games of the time thanks to its shoot-'em-up gameplay. While these segments were surrounded by story bits, the main gameplay has you shooting zombies in side-scrolling action similar to the likes of Operation Wolf. The 32X again improves the things it did in the other games, and again, if you have access to both, that is the version you want. Hell, I'd even go so far as to say the 32X version rivals the Sega Saturn in video quality, but that's only saying something if you like the game. It's still the same game it always was, and again, even with the improvements, the 32X video is still not particularly great. Both versions claim to use the Miniser light gun, but I've never tried them out to see if it actually works. I mean, this kind of game is just as easy to use a controller with anyway. It was disappointing again to see Digital Pictures not upgrade the heads-up display all that much from the Sega CD version. I mean, such a simple thing to upgrade and improve the presentation a bit, yet it continues to look like a dithered mess. Like Night Trap, if you're a fan of it, the 32X version may hold some appeal. If you're on the outside looking in, you're probably sitting there with a scowl on your face, wondering where the hell the real games are.
Private First Class, Tony Galliano. Dr. Hellman has done nothing but told us the truth. He's not a violent man. He's a caring visionary. Private First Class, Tony Galliano. Dr. Hellman has done nothing but told us the truth. He's not a violent man. He's a caring visionary.
BC Racers was released for both systems, and it isn't full motion video based. It was Core Design's 1994 take on Mario Kart using the Chuck Rock universe. You race around a ton of different tracks trying to finish first. You can attack, use nitro boost, and you have a choice of a bunch of different racers. Sounds like a winner. And if you are a racing game fan, there is enough here to get some enjoyment out of. The karts are easy to control, and the tracks are easy to follow. The problem? Neither one of these games take true advantage of either platform. While the engine is technically using some scaling techniques, both are not anywhere near as smooth as they should be. I mean, there are better looking scaling engines on both that are much smoother and faster, making you wonder just what the hell is going on. While this was bad enough for the Sega CD, the 32X version is supposed to be on a next generation machine. Look at it. Does that look next generation to you? The problem here is that BC Racers isn't a bad game, it's just that it should have been so much more. It was never a deep or complicated experience, so the jump to 32 bits should have at least brought some visual power with it. No such luck. They even messed around with the control and how you attack and do nitro boost, which was easier and you could attack from both sides on the Sega CD. While Sega was wowing us with Afterburner and Space Harrier, this thing here was nothing short of a titanic letdown. Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure appeared on both as well. You can pretty much copy and paste everything I said in the Genesis comparison in part 1 and apply it here about the visuals. The Sega CD version is pretty much identical to the Genesis in graphics, so again the 32X version looks better thanks to more color. But with that comes the frame rate being cut in half, essentially ruining a fast-scrolling 2D game like this. The Sega CD version also has some additional cutscenes and a much better CD soundtrack, making it the best version of Pitfall by quite a stretch. Brutal Paws of Fury was also on the Sega CD. Again, take what I said about the Genesis version before and apply it here. It doesn't have the big color of the 32X version, but it plays so much better. The scrolling on the 32X is so janky it actually moves the position of the second fighter as you move around him. No joke, you can move the position of the second fighter by just scrolling the screen. The Sega CD version of course adds a ton of animation, and the CD soundtrack ain't so bad. Still, this game is a low tier fighter no matter which way you choose to play it. Remember how I said the 32X NBA Jam Tournament Edition was kind of a mixed bag due to its weirdly proportioned sprites? Well, the Sega CD version of the original NBA Jam is actually pretty damn good, thanks to loads of arcade voice samples, great music, and an overall killer presentation. It was by far my favorite 16-bit version of NBA Jam, and honestly, I'll take it over the 32X version any day. It's not that I dislike Tournament Edition on the old X, I just like the look, feel, and sounds better on the Sega CD. In the plus column, the 32X version has a better roster for many of the teams.
He's on fire!
The next 3 games you're gonna see are just comparisons for fun since they are all pretty much completely different content. The Sega CD got WWF Rage in the Cage, an earlier entry into the series that would go on to become WWF Raw on the 32X. As you can see, very similar overall in how it looks and plays. Of course, the Sega CD version had some great music, but lacked the all-important Royal Rumble mode, a crushing omission. I still really like both games though. Afterburner 3 was more a take on G-Lock than it was Afterburner, but here it is nonetheless. This was one of the most disappointing releases on the Sega CD for me, and the 32X version absolutely annihilates it visually. The Sega CD version has a nice soundtrack, but man is it dog ugly. Last but not least is Soulstar, the core design space shooter that really showed off what was capable with the Sega CD scaling hardware. A port was meant to come to the 32X as well, but midway into development it was cancelled, and all that remains is this simple prototype. It's a shame it never saw the light of day.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall. To my left, from Uganda, weighing 390 pounds, the Ugandan giant, Kamala!
So, after playing all these games, what conclusions have I reached? As much as I wanted the 32X to be more than it was, there is no question it was an ill-timed, poorly designed stopgap that was in no position to perform as well as gamers wanted it to, and Sega needed it to. Much like the Sega CD before it, the very nature of its add-on qualities meant we were going to get a ton of similar games that failed to truly utilize the hardware effectively. As we saw time and time again, many of the games for the 32X amounted to little more than Genesis software with a few bits and pieces of enhanced color and sound. And while it's easy to blame lazy developers for these games, it's as much Sega's fault as it is theirs. The 32X's design and marketing didn't exactly inspire game makers to take a lot of chances, particularly with the Sega Saturn landing a mere 6 months later. To add to the letdown were 32X CD games that were exclusively full motion video, so we never got to actually see all 3 pieces of hardware doing a traditional game together. Despite these realizations, the 32X still had some games very much worth playing. And the thing is, almost all of these games did something the base Genesis wasn't known for. Those ports of Space Harrier and Afterburner showed that sprite scaling was definitely something the 32X could do, and of course the polygon games for it represented some of the best experiences. A flat-shaded Virtua Cop could have been a winner, a port of Outrunners would have been huge, and just imagine a special 32X version of Phantasy Star 4. Where were these games at? If Sega lacked the resources to push this kind of software, why bother releasing a 32X at all? I also believe that Sega went about the form factor of the 32X entirely wrong. The messaging itself was as convoluted as I've ever seen. This right here should have been the product Sega released from day one. Not an add-on, but an upgraded Genesis 2. The Genesis 32X would have been standalone. Sega could have promoted its backwards compatibility to parents, and perhaps more importantly, it wouldn't have had the stigma of being attached to an old system. Given how inexpensive it was to produce the Genesis at that point, I doubt it would have cost much more than the 32X we actually received. But hindsight is always 20/20, and none of that mattered. What we are ultimately left with are kids that had it back then and kids that didn't. The former likely have a few good memories of the old 32X, while the latter experienced it much later, endearing it to none of them. And that tends to be gaming in a nutshell. What you played as a kid has a profound effect on your opinions of these products, both then and now. While I can certainly see the flaws of the 32X and its software, there is still a part of me that really enjoyed some of its games. And honestly guys, that's all that really matters. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.